Today, I want to talk to you guys about Socrates. Now, Socrates is a very important figure in philosophy. There wouldn't be a lot of branches of philosophy without Socrates. And, he was Plato's teacher, and then Plato was Aristotle's teacher. So, Socrates played a very big part in philosophy, let's say. And I just recently figured this out. It doesn't have much to do with what we're going to talk about today, but I just figured I'd just thought of it. So, Socrates might not have been a real person, I guess. We know that Plato was real, but it's hard to say whether Socrates is Plato's creation or if Socrates really was a person and really taught Plato. Because Plato writes as if Socrates was real, but you know how writers can write and make up fake characters and stuff like that. So I personally think Socrates was real, but I guess that's a stigma out there. But yeah, let's today get into the point. And the point is, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I've decided to finally make a video about it. And that's Socrates' ultimate goal was to help as many people as possible, I believe. Socrates was a skeptic, so he went around the streets and he questioned people, and he didn't question them in a passive aggressive way or anything. He questioned them in a actually wanting to learn way. The oracle at Delphi, so the story goes, says that Socrates was the wisest person, and Socrates came to the conclusion that he was the wisest because he knew nothing. So he approached conversations like he knew nothing. He would ask you, what are you doing when you're just obviously walking? And he would things like that he would dive into and try to get to the essence of walking. And he would look at it as if he was a child and he's never even seen anybody walk before. Nevertheless, done it on his own. So that was kind of the way Socrates approached things. And I think he did it for himself for sure, but also for these other people to show them that they aren't looking as deeply into things as they could be. They're not getting to the bottom of, they're not getting to the roots of the things that they do and what they're actually doing. So, Socrates went around and did all that. He didn't write anything down, but he lived his life like a philosopher. He didn't write like a lot of philosophers do, but the true test of a philosopher is how he lives his life, I believe. And Socrates lived a philosophical life for sure. And then Socrates got convicted of corrupting the youth by Athens. And he had to go through trial and all that stuff, and he got sentenced to death. And Socrates had a chance to escape. He had a chance to, flee, go into exile, not die. And Socrates said no. And what I know about Socrates is that, or what I've heard that Socrates did was listen to the voice in his head, which, sounds crazy, but I mean, I think everyone has a voice in their head. That's almost like a guide. Some people probably call it God. Some people call it their conscious, their, the devil and angel on the shoulder, all that stuff. But Socrates says that voice never told him what to do, but it told him what not to do. And you can assume in that situation it told him not to flee. It told him not to go into exile. It told him to sit here, even though you were being unjustly charged, and drink hemlock and die. And he didn't question it. He didn't question that inner voice. He said, okay. And this kind of ties back to what I was saying earlier. Well, it does tie back to what I was saying earlier. Socrates' main goal was to help people. And how could Socrates have ever known that the way that he would help the most people is dying? It sounds insane. You know, I'm going to die. I'm not going to be able to help anyone anymore. I'm not going to be able to shed light on these matters. And, everyone's going to forget about me. But Socrates didn't ask that question. He just trusts his inner voice. And little did Socrates, or does he know because he's dead, that in dying, he was going to help more people than he could ever imagine. We may not even know the name Socrates if he fled into exile and ran away. May never know who he was, but he decided to listen to his inner voice, sit there and take his unjust fate and die. And in doing so, the story of Socrates became a thing. Plato became Plato, Aristotle became Aristotle, and the Stoics, and even Stoicism comes from Socrates' death, because Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, was told by the Oracle of Delphi that he will become wise when he starts listening to dead people. And he had no idea what that meant. Or no, once he starts talking to dead people. And he had no idea what that meant. But one day, after his shipwreck, he's in the library and he hears something, and it's Socrates. Someone's like reciting a Socrates quote. And he realizes right then and there, he's like, oh, I need to read. I need to read these dead people. I need to have conversations with these dead people, because then I will become wise. And if Socrates wasn't dead, then that wouldn't have came true. If he just heard Socrates on the side of the street, if Socrates came up to Zeno and started questioning him, he wouldn't have thought anything of it because he's not dead. But Socrates was dead, so the Oracle of Delphi, the prophecy, came true, and he started becoming wise once he started talking to the dead. And there's just so much that snowballs from that, because I think, I might butcher this, so don't quote me on this, but I think that skepticism was like not the first philosophy, obviously, but like the top philosophy. And then after skepticism, it branched out into three, and it was two of them are Epicureanism and Stoicism, and I can't remember the third one. I can't remember the third one. I'm not even going to try to make a guess, but yeah, so much came from Socrates. And little did he know, in death, he was going to help way more people than he had ever helped in his life. He was going to reach more people than he had ever reached in his life. If, the dates add up, that was 2,500 years ago. And we still talk about Socrates. He's still regarded as one of the best. And his students are regarded as the best. And his student's student is regarded as one of the best. It's insane to think about. And all Socrates ever did, apparently, was listen to that voice in his head, and it told him what not to do. And I think about that a lot, because I think a lot of times in life, it's you know what you shouldn't do, but it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's not rational. It's not, so many things it's not. But there's just something, in your heart, in your gut, in your head, and it's telling you, I should do that. And when you start looking at it rationally, you're like, why? Why should I do that? But you can't bear it rationally. You just have to trust your gut, trust your stomach, trust your, same thing, trust your gut, trust your heart, trust your brain, and just go with it. And not try to look at it rationally, not say what if, not spiral down a rabbit hole. You can't do that, because when you start doing that, you're never going to take action, because there's so many unknowns out there. You can snowball, like me getting out of this chair, I could snowball that into, well, I could slip, break my neck, and die. And in doing so, never get up from this chair, and then also die. There's a little side note, but I mean, I think we also need to remember that not making a decision is making a decision. If I make a decision, like say I need to choose to get up and go for a run or get up and go to the gym. If I say, no, I'm doing neither, I'm sitting here, that is a decision. I just ended up choosing option C instead of A or B, but that's still a decision. I still am going to reap the rewards or reap the consequences of sitting in this chair all day. And I think a lot of times I prolong decisions and think that I'm not making a decision, but I am. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is how Socrates helped more people in death than in life. And he could have never have known that. But he still trusted that inner voice telling him that to die. And that's one of the reasons the Stoics love Socrates so much. Because he didn't, to the Stoics, the things that matter are the things that are subject to will. And Socrates getting sentenced to death was not subject to will. But Socrates not bearing death honorably, and Socrates losing his trustworthiness and fleeing and doing all this, that would have tainted Socrates in the eyes of the Stoics. He would have ran from death. He would have been, quote unquote, afraid of death, which, the Stoics say we shouldn't be afraid of death because it is not subject to will. It is neither good nor bad. It just is. So this is one of the main reasons I believe the Stoics were in love with Socrates, because how he handled his last days and just how he lived his life in general, like a true philosopher. So the main point of this video is just to remember that things aren't always as they seem. Sometimes when you have such a strong inclination to do something, you just need to trust it. You just need to go with it, because it's impossible to tell the future. It's impossible. That's why it's a great reason why you should always be true to yourself and be honest. Because, say someone's wallet falls out of their pocket and you see it. Now, you're struggling for money at the moment and you're very hungry, your kids are hungry, it's just, you're not doing the best right now. And you see a wallet drop out of a pocket and, you pick it up and your first inclination is give the person their wallet back. But then you see it and it's just, filled with $100 bills. It's a loaded wallet. You see just credit card after credit card. You have, a bunch of money in your hands essentially. And, that inclination comes to you, well, I'm hungry. Like this guy won't even notice. I mean, he'll notice his wallet gone, but once he calls the banks and turns off all of his cards, the damage won't even be that much. It'll just be inconvenient. He won't even really know. He won't even really notice it. He'll forget in a year. But this could help me out so much right now. And say you take the wallet and, maybe, yeah, you get some food for your family. You're not hungry for a little bit, but you're going to go back down into that place because you don't have a regularly occurring income. But say you overcome that and you say, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't want to lose my trustworthiness. I don't want to lose my integrity. It's not worth it. I want to, but there's something in me telling me I shouldn't do this. And you go and give the guy's wallet back. And, you're wearing raggedy clothes and he's amazed. He's like, He knows how much money he has in his wallet. He knows he's dressed in a suit and looks all rich, and he knows that all the credit cards he has right there, and he's just amazed. And he owns his own business, and he decides like, hey, like I need someone like you with integrity. I'm sure you're a hard worker and you just got dealt a bad hand. How about you come start at my company on Monday? I'll put you up in an apartment, I'll get you a bunch of food, get you some clothes, and then you can come work for me and then see how it works out. And then now you're just like, you have a steady income that'll start coming in. You didn't lose your integrity. You kept your trustworthiness. And now you have a place to stay and food for your family and all these things. And that's something that you can't see in the moment. You can't see that returning a wallet could do that. And that's not why you should return the wallet. You should return the wallet because it's the right thing to do. But my point is that you just never know what the future holds. But if say you take that wallet and you get, $2,000 out of it, all right, like you lost something even more important though, your integrity. But yeah, I mean, you're going to be okay for a couple weeks. But say you do the right thing, and then now you could potentially have a job the rest of your life, and a good job for a good person. So just don't be so quick to say no to your inclinations to do the right thing, because life is too uncertain. Anything can happen. That's why we need to focus on the things inside of our control, because the things outside of our control are just impossible to know. We need to have confidence in the things outside of our control, because they're neither good or bad. They just are, and they're outside of our control. So there's confidence to be had in that, because you will never have control over it. And caution in things inside of your control, because they are subject to will. That is where you can destroy your soul. That is where you can lose integrity, lose trustworthiness, lose so many things that make you you. And these are all within your control. So don't let matters outside of your control destroy the matters that are within your control. And just remember what Socrates did. I think about it a lot. I think it's amazing that he chose death over life. And I also think it's amazing that he helped more people in death than in life. And he could have never have known that, but that voice inside of him knew it somehow.